Hi, I'm Ava. By a show of hands, how many people in this room have heard of a superhero or an origin story? Okay, it's a good number. What is an origin story? I describe it as the backstory that shapes a person's identity and motivations, or in this case, a superhero. When I think of an origin story, the first thing that comes to my mind is Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man. By another show of hands, what's a canon event? How many of you heard of it? I describe a canon event as a moment that is destined to happen. No matter what, whether it's a small conversation or it's a major life event, everyone experiences at least one canon event in their life. We've talked about origin stories and we've talked about canon events, but the bigger question is, how do they connect? Let's go back to Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse. Miles' origin story is similar to that of other Spider-Men. He gets bitten by a radioactive spider and gains superpowers. However, his canon event is the loss of his uncle. No matter what Miles did, he couldn't change the outcome. So once these moments happen, once the origin story begins and the canon event reshapes it, the real question becomes, what do you do next? What does gratitude have to do with this? I've given plenty of examples of characters, but what about real people? What about me? What's my origin story and canon event? Let's start at the beginning, before my canon event. There's a stark contrast between who I was as a freshman and who I am now as a senior. To better understand that difference, I asked a few teachers who have seen me grow how they would describe my freshman year self. One of those teachers said, as a freshman, you were reserved in your approach to challenges or taking risks in your learning in life, just putting one foot in front of the other and leaping over each hurdle with room to spare, scared to hit it. Another said, freshman year, you were content to fade into the background. You didn't want to be in the spotlight and were timid when sharing your thoughts and ideas. If you told freshman year Ava that she'd be standing here giving a TED Talk, she would have laughed, cried, and maybe even panicked, if not both. But senior year Ava takes it as a challenge. My canon event was my sophomore year. I had become friends with a multitude of different people. Some I got along with well, others not so much. I want to talk about one specific friend. We were both complex people with very clashing personalities. Our ups were when we would crack jokes together, laugh over silly things, or spend hours talking. Everything was good when we were up. But when we had downs, they definitely made an impact. I remember a particularly rough night. My friend had called me to work on a group project, which I totally forgot about, and I remember dragging myself to open the call and get to work. When I joined the call, my friends could sense the emptiness in my voice and asked me if I was okay. Before I knew it, I was sobbing, angry, venting everything I'd been holding on to from that day. What still resonates with me today is my friend's reaction to what I said. Oh, okay, so back to the project. In that moment, I felt something shift. I felt so invisible and alone. I honestly don't even remember how the rest of the call went because of how hollow I felt. Fast forwarding a bit to around the end of my sophomore year. During a big argument with this friend, I blurted out, I can't do this anymore. My exact words were, you never have my back. I'm there for you at every turn when you need a shoulder to cry on or someone to vent to. And even in the good moments, I was there to celebrate your achievements. But when I needed you the most, you weren't there. My friend just looked at me like I said something crazy. I'm tired. I don't want to be the only person putting effort into our friendship. That was the first time I'd ever told someone how much they hurt me. My friend apologized and said they would try to be better, but I know that wasn't true. Not long after, our friendship came to an end. I realized the promises that made were empty, and that some people won't change. Losing one of my first friends in high school hurt, but deep down, I understood that our friendship was never meant to last, and it was destined to end. Some of my biggest takeaways from this friendship that has helped me put my canon event into perspective is 1. Friendship is a two-way street. One-sided friendships aren't real friendships. 2. Growth requires change. For me, that change meant speaking up for myself, even when I felt like I couldn't. If I had never found the courage to say what I needed to say, I would have never found my voice. 3. Resentment is overrated. Will we ever be friends again? No. But is it really worth my energy to hold on to that resentment forever? Also no. Putting the canon event into perspective allows you to see that it's not just something that hurt you, but it's something that helps shape you into who you are. What happens after a canon event? The answer to that is growth. They always say that when one door closes, another one opens, and that quite literally happened. Leaving that friendship led me to the best one I've ever had, my lovely friend who we'll call Beans, who's somewhere here. I remember a moment where I was treating her terribly. I had a lot going on in my personal life, and I was taking it out on her. By the end of that week, when I was able to see how terrible I'd been, I pulled her aside during practice and said, "I'm sorry." She laughed, which made me spiral a little bit, but then she said, "I was going to talk to you, but you beat me to it." We hugged it out. But what will always stick with me about that interaction is what she said afterwards. "Are you okay? What's going on in your life that's affected you this much?" This was like a full circle moment. I felt loved this time, not empty. Our origin stories stay the same, but as we evolve, we have a different understanding of how it impacted us. I asked the same teachers who I've become as a senior. One said, "Now as a senior, you are brave and bold, speaking up for yourself and others. You take charge in all the right ways, are an amazing role model to younger students, especially women of color." Another one said, "Over the past 4 years, I've seen you grow into a powerful young woman who is confident in herself, advocates for what she wants and needs, and approaches challenges with an excitement to get started and determined to excel. You land a strong, confident steps because you can see the whole picture and set your sights on bigger challenges ahead." Before I conclude, I've yet to answer the million-dollar question. What does this have to do with gratitude? I believe that negative experiences deserve gratitude because they teach us the lessons that positive ones can't. My lesson learned that I hope to leave you all with is that not every situation feels meaningful in the moment, and not every experience is very impactful. Sometimes the moments that shape us are uncomfortable or confusing. People often expect growth to come from success or positivity, but that's not always where the lesson is. Difficult experiences force you to reflect. They make you think, question your actions, your choices, and most importantly, who you are. Impact is not measured by how good something feels, but how much it changes the way we think afterwards. Gratitude doesn't mean that the experience was wanted or meaningful. It means that even in the painful moments or experiences that we wish we could erase are the ones that rebuild us by leaving something behind. Thank you.